Is there light at the end of the tunnel in the Russia-Ukraine war? It has been going on now unrelenting for the last 3.5 years. The fighting has only been getting more and more fierce. In the summer season, Russia has now assembled 1,60,000 soldiers for a final push. They have already captured their two main objectives for the Russian-speaking provinces of Donetsk and Luhansk. Russia has already captured 98% of Luhansk, right? And it had captured about 60% of Donetsk. It has, in the last 10 days or so, it has captured 70% of Donetsk. Give it the year end, give it a few more months, and Russia will achieve what it has set out to achieve, right? But it will be at the cost of terrible bloodletting and sacrifice on both sides. What Vladimir Putin is saying, end the bloodshed, end the genocide, end the mass murder, and settle for peace. I will take what Russia considers legitimately to be its own. It wants to save the Russian-speaking people of Donetsk and Luhansk. Vladimir Putin feels responsible for the ethnic Russians all over, right? And he also is saying that I have already lost 500,000 soldiers. It's not just to have a ceasefire because Donald Trump wants one. The aim of America and Europe is to save face. By a draw, by a frozen conflict like Korea, a stalemate, right? Neither you won nor we won. Na koi jeeta, na koi hara. Nobody lost, nobody won this war. Let it be a stalemate so that we can save face. Vladimir Putin is very clear. I have shed too much blood just to go in for cosmetic ceasefire. Please address the root causes of this conflict. Therefore, he has laid the conditions out on the table. I want Donetsk, I want Luhansk, whatever is there I have got in Zaporizhzhia and the southern province, I am prepared to have a ceasefire in situ there. These I will take, and Ukraine will have to give an assurance that it will not join NATO and threaten Russia again. Simple. Donald Trump said, my understanding was that Putin wants to take the whole of Ukraine. Putin is not a fool. He does not want to get bogged down in another Afghanistan. He has taken only those parts of Ukraine which are Russian speaking, which are ethnically Russian, so that he will face no problem from the local populations. Europe had a very smart idea. Let us put our peacekeeping force there. This is a strange formulation. Russia is saying, I will not let NATO come here. The whole war has been fought not to let NATO put boots on the ground. Now the Europeans have a very smart idea. With all this bloodletting which Ukraine has done on their behalf, they want to put their soldiers on the ground in Ukraine. Are you nuts? You think Russia has fought for nothing? Russia has fought to keep NATO out. And this was one of the most bizarre formulations about a ceasefire, that we will put boots on the ground, we will occupy and put a tripwire up there. Firstly, does Europe have adequate number of soldiers? UK has just about 70,000 soldiers. France has about 80,000 to 100,000. They can spare maximum 2 brigades, maximum 3. They cannot provide a peacekeeping force which can guarantee that there will be no ceasefire violations. It's just not possible. For that kind of a thing, you would need a massive UN contingent. And UN contingents have not been very effective in enforcing ceasefires between such hardcore belligerents. So, this entire idea of a peacekeeping force, European idea of a peacekeeping force which they would provide, they would not accept any Indian troops or Pakistani troops or whatever other troops here. They would provide the peacekeeping force, And you see, the problem is they were once ruling the whole world. The small little countries in Europe were ruling the whole world. Like there is a colloquial proverb, rassi jal gayi, aint nahi gayi. The rope has burned down, but it is still twisted. They pretend as if they rule the whole world still. Like hell. They don't. The earlier this reality check comes in Europe. So far, they were pretending to be global powers, courtesy the United States. The United States was spending the bulk of treasure, providing the bulk of forces and military power to make Europe do grandstanding. Now Europe has to come to its senses. The countries that have suffered the worst in this conflict are the countries of Europe. Their economies have virtually been destroyed. Why? Because their natural energy linkages were with Russia. Their oil and gas used to come from Russia, geographical proximity the closest, therefore the cheapest oil and gas was from Russia. That was what was making the European economies prosper, and they were spending nothing, next to nothing on their defense. This is where Donald Trump got very angry and he said, you will have to carry the burden. He asked them to increase their defense spending to 2.5% of the GDP and then 5% of the GDP. That will, as it is, ruin their economy, right? So, now Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump met in Alaska. Like I said, Donald Trump initially said, and he said so, I thought Putin wanted the whole of Ukraine, but he is willing to settle for this, and which more or less gives a kind of a draw. That Ukraine hasn't been captured. It's a face saving for the West, major face saving for the West, and therefore Donald Trump happily agreed. Because he genuinely believed that Putin wants the whole of Russia. Putin is too smart. He knows if he takes the rest of Ukraine beyond the Dnieper river, he will be bogged down in another Afghanistan plus. Because the Ukrainians will keep fighting. The Ukrainians will resort to guerrilla warfare. If their conventional battles are lost, their conventional battles are still not over, right? So, Putin knows that he will be able to hold on to these provinces of Donetsk and Luhansk. They are Russian speaking, therefore they will not oppose him as the proper Ukraine ethnicities might, and bog him down into another ulcer, Spanish ulcer, or another Afghanistan, from which he had to leave because he could not bear the bloodletting and the cost, the continual cost. Even America had to leave Afghanistan, even America had to leave Iraq, because the cost of holding on and trying to enforce control against a hostile population over a period of time can become very, very monumental. Can sink, torpedo an economy. So, where do we go from here? Vladimir Putin has put his cards on the table. I haven't sacrificed 500,000 men for nothing, just to accept a ceasefire. Please address root causes. Even at the time of the Minsk Accords, he was saying, let there be a European Security Conference, let us address root causes. The START Treaty, the Intermediate Nuclear Arms Treaty, etc., all have gone by the wayside. And he's saying it's time to get to a modus vivendi again. Donald Trump, during his electioneering phase, had said, I have a grand strategic vision. I want peace and quiet for the next 4 to 5 years to rebuild the American economy, to rebuild the American armed forces, provide a golden dome, right, and tackle the deep state. The deep state seemed to be getting the better of Donald Trump because he is over-centralizing and now tiring himself out, right? Because he is trying to do the tariff trade war on a day-by-day, hour-by-hour, minute-by-minute basis. I think if a leader wants to take on that kind of a personalized load, well, he'll wear himself out pretty fast. Age is not in his favor, right? And if he tires himself out unduly, the deep state may still get the better of him, right? He wanted to pivot back to Asia. He felt that Russia is not my main enemy, as Joe Biden felt. He said, this is Biden's war, they are not my war. He wanted to end these never-ending wars, forever wars, and focus towards the main enemy, which is China, People's Republic of China. The only thing is, in getting involved in trades and tariffs, Donald Trump seems to be forgetting the grand strategic design. He seems to be losing sight of the grand strategic design, the way he has slapped. If you think China is your main enemy, then you need Japan, then you need India in Asia. You can't slap 50% tariffs on India and drive it into the Russia-India-China triangle. Donald Trump seems to be losing sight of the overall direction, strategic direction in which he is proceeding. But if he is able to get peace in Ukraine, it will be a major feather in his cap. He would frankly have deserved the Nobel Peace Prize then. He would have earned it. So he is trying damn hard. He is very desperate to get it. For the sake of the world, let's hope he does. Let's hope he does. A peace deal will be much better than a ceasefire. Even a ceasefire, policed by Europe. That couldn't have happened in a month of Sundays, right? If a peace deal is worked out sincerely by men of goodwill, it could last. It could last. It would serve America's grand strategic design of ending forever wars, focusing in the right direction, getting its overall strategic directions right. Jai Bharat, Jai Hind.